good things that have taught you lessons, and that's why I shared that with you. Okay? Think about the other things that have maybe shared lessons with you this year too.
Yeah, just on that point there, go back this last year and look at some of your failures, because failure isn't failure if you learn something from it.
Right.
And a lot of times that will spark the interest of like, okay, what did I learn? It's easy to say, ask yourself, what did I learn, and come up blank as far as where am I at, because it's kind of a slow journey. But when you look at some of those failures, you can say, okay, this is what I've learned from that.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to failure, or is often said, right? FAIL stands for first attempt in learning something. So you didn't fail if you learned something. I remember my first, and that's a great example, Jason. I remember my first time that Tony Robbins, I tease and tell everybody that it rocked my ship. But I had just recently joined the company. I had been recently divorced, and woe is me, victim. I hated men, right? Like I more so joined the company to prove Georgia point. Let's just be honest, right? And then it came from a place of, I was at Tony Robbins, and I remember like him saying, a lot of people who have gone through situations like that will blame themselves or do whatever it is, right? But if you learn something, did you fail at it? And for me, it turned on a dime, right? Like it just turned on a dime. So look at your failures too. What did you learn? Don't think that all the good things are here to teach you. The failures are your best examples, right?
And George's message, I think it was today or earlier this week, was about failure.
Yeah.
About failing forward.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, number 2, what will you no longer accept? So now that you've done your 8 equities, or once you've done them, what are you no longer going to accept in those areas? Are there certain things in your relationships that maybe didn't go the way that you wanted to last year? Are there certain things that you didn't do in your growth aspects? I myself negotiated I usually go to 2 Tony Robbins events a year. I negotiated one this year. But I actually feel okay with it, but that was something that next year will not happen again, right? It's the first time in 8 years that I've done that, but it will not happen again. What are you no longer to accept? Okay? And think about those 8 equities that we went through last time. So family, spirituality, your economics, right? Travel, health, leadership, your growth opportunities, contribution, for those of you who kind of need a reset. The next question, what gives your life purpose? And I'm going to challenge you guys on this, because if it's okay with you, I'll share something that I learned myself this year. My life's purpose is not outside myself. For some of you, that might be hard to hear. For me, it was hard to hear. Okay? My life's purpose was not being a great aunt. My life's purpose was not being a great daughter to my family, or a great granddaughter, and making sure that I get back east, right? I mean, that was one of the things that I made sure. And your life's purpose is within yourself. Okay? So I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that. And it's because for me, even though it was for me, like I said, hard for me to hear this year. You have to go inward. Quit looking outward for your fulfillment. Okay? Until you truly go in here and work on this person, you're never going to have fulfillment out here, you guys. It's like Tony Robbins will often say, right? We expect from other people, but when we have expectations, then we're often disappointed. Well, the only person you really have control over is this person, right? Me and my sister were having this conversation yesterday. Chris.
This is such a deep, profound thing you're going into.
It is.
Do you guys get that? It's not outside yourself, where she said it's not being a good aunt. It's not a why this year can be like, I am doing a lot of things I'm doing to get my first house, or like get out of debt and things like that. But your purpose, that comes down to like you, who you are. And the cool thing about failure that you're bringing up is a lot of times through failure and experiences we have, whether you believe in God, universe, whatever it might be, you start to realize that these things have been placed in front of you so you can develop these gifts and talents that we have as our purpose. And it takes more time to explain a lot of this, but once you're in tune with that, you have extreme gratitude for experiences you've had, because it's kind of like the breadcrumbs to lead you along. And then on top of that, you recognize places where you can help and serve others in a big way. But that's such an important statement.
It is. And it is something that I could spend hours with you guys on, and my experience that I learned from it this year myself. But it's not outside yourself, it's within, right? And it's often taught here at the company, and I will tell you this year is what it taught me the most. But I will tell you the example of when it started was about 18 months ago. My identity was stolen. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I am super OCD about my like social security and things like that because I worked for debt collection attorneys. So I'm super paranoid about that kind of stuff. And when it was stolen, I thought the world had ended, right? Like my life just went up in a smoke and I was just like, whoa, what's gonna happen? Oh, let me just tell you something. Nothing has happened, okay? Nothing at all. In fact, she went to court, that's about it. She went to prison. So it's one of those things, right, is I had to have that face though. It's not about my identity. My social security number doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean who I am. Being an aunt doesn't mean who I am. Being a girlfriend, things like that, that's not who you are. So I would challenge you to go in. Being the best mom or being the best dad, right? That's not your life purpose, you guys. Okay? And I can spend more time with each of you if you want to, but dig a little bit deeper. Go inward. And the fun thing, like Chris said, is once you go inward and you recognize what's in here first, then it is really that statement that we say at the company, when you focus here, you're able to serve outward. You're able to be who you need to be for other people. You're able to enjoy your experiences a lot more because you're not looking for something or having an expectation or an emotion that you're expecting from that individual, right? Because I'm here first. Okay? Yeah.
So this reminds me of Brene Brown's like concept of being wholehearted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about there?
Yep.
And I'd say that's probably one of my biggest things I've learned this year is about one of the reasons I joined this company is because he told me about Justin Udy, how he became the person he'd become to accomplish what he does now, right?
Yep.
And that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me when we were talking. And I'd say that's probably my biggest learning lesson is being wholehearted, and that also ties into why I won't accept this anymore. Why I won't accept anymore. I won't do anything unless I'm going to be fully engaged in it. I won't participate or be a member of something unless I'm going to be fully engaged.
I love that. Presence, right? Being true to yourself first, and that it's amazing what you can do for others when you're really taking care of you first, right? So, love it. Okay, next question. Number 4. What does it look like when life's on track? What does it look like for you when life's on track? I had a conversation with one of my dearest friends the other day, right? And I confronted it. And I said, true friends actually make time for other people, right? And for him, it was one of those things that, oh yeah, maybe my life's a little off track. Okay? Because the very things that meant something to him, he wasn't doing. And I'm not here to tell you what that means for you, but what does it look like when your life's on track? What does it look like if you know you're doing the right things? For me, my every morning, right, I must have learned it from the Miracle Morning or Miracle Morning for real estate agents, but I don't come to the office till I worked out. Like, that's important to me. That's when I know my life's on track. Why? Because I know if I get to the gym in the morning, that means I listen to something motivational. That means I've listened to my book. It means I've gone to a place of gratitude. It means I've meditated. But when I don't, that's when I know my life's off track. When I justify why I didn't get out of bed, even this morning I was laying there. Guys, apparently there's a cold trying to fight me. And the quote from George came into my mind saying, life happens quit doing things based on how you feel and do what you know you should be doing. So guess what I did? 2 seconds, out of bed. Right? Got out of bed and I went, and I feel so much better.
Mel Robbins got me out of bed this morning.
Yeah? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
That's what it took.
Okay. The next question is, what's important to you about money? This is a great question to ask yourself, you guys. Okay, again, and I hate to give examples of my situation, but hopefully it maybe helps and rings true to some of you guys. But when I first asked myself this question years ago, I remember where I was, and I remember at what event I was sitting in, and it's amazing what the word money meant to me, right? It was that old statement, money is greed, money is this, money is that. Oh, money's not everything. Now I can turn to my nephew and say, money is everything, buddy. Don't let the world fool you. Because it's about what money can do for you. Right? Not that the right intentions weren't there when I was growing up. but there's some limiting things. I sat with an agent the other day, right? And he asked me, he said, Linz, why don't you think I'm making more money? And I said, is it just fair to say that your limitations might be behind money? You grew up that making it here to the U.S. was enough. Being able to provide for your family in the U.S. was enough. That was a hard conversation I had to have with him, right? I had to take that risk though, because he's not making more money. And he was okay with his wife making the money, even though the way he grew up it's his responsibility to be the provider. But he's still fighting that because he has enough money here, so he doesn't really have to go make more money in real estate. So we sat down and did the equities, and it's fun to see how he's broken through that a little bit. Okay? So just again, some examples. The next one is what's important to you about your health. One of my favorite examples is sitting right here. Tim, goodness gracious, no. Over the years, I've known this guy, by the way, you guys, for about 14 years now, Tim?
14, 15, yeah, about 14 years.
Yeah, so we worked at the previous company together, and I mean, look at him, dialed in. Evan Childs, right? He's down 100 pounds this year. Now, that doesn't mean everything, guys. It doesn't have to be a weight loss goal, but what does health mean to you? Right? I mean, again, for my example, health and vitality is what's important to me. People ask me, well, when are you going to compete? When are you going to do this? I don't want to compete. I'm not willing to do things to my body that competitors do. Why? Because I want health and vitality. I want to be able to play with my grandkids.
Well, we talked about this as I was coming over when we were talking.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest thing for me has been confidence. And the thing is, like, when I was bigger, it's like I would talk myself out of it, be like, well, I really am confident. But it was just something I was saying, but now I believe it. So it's actually being that.
It's amazing what health can do to your confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's amazing.
I'm with you on that one, Tim. Okay, so what does your health mean to you? Now I'm at a point where, like I told Tim, I'm eliminating meat out of my diet. And what's been fun is to see the ability of my body and what it's been able to do because of that. Right? So what does health mean to you? It's going to be different for
I said something
everybody.
the other day coming back from vacation. I could tell just in your face that
Thank you.
you changed your diet.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. When you grew up eating potatoes, it's one of those ones that it's really hard to change, guys. But it's been fun, actually. I was telling Tim, I can see the difference that chicken has on versus red meat. Like, that's crazy to me. If I body eat with chicken, immediately inflames. Like the next morning, I can see it in the mirror. The day if I eat beef, I'm okay. It does a little bit, but not much. It's cool. Watch, if you guys haven't watched The Game Changers, watch it. And then here's the last
What's
one.
that called? What's
The
it
Game
called?
Changers. It's on Netflix. And then the next question I want you guys to ask yourself, what relationships do you want? What relationships in 2020 are you going to create? What relationships do you want? My mantra this year, believe it or not, at the beginning of the year was I want a healthy, passionate, loving relationship within myself. And now it's fun because now that's turning outward. Now I'm saying that to other situations or other relationships. What relationships do you want? Do you want the closeness with your nieces, your grandkids, your nephews, right? Like, what do you want to do? One of my favorite experiences was just 2 weeks ago. I took my autistic nephew to the gym with me. Because there was nothing more fulfilling than watching that little boy just want to outdo me. And then I realized, okay, I gotta lessen my weight because he's just gonna go on all this and get hurt, right? But then it was fun to see him like just have this big smile on his face and something that I love. Are there things that you can share in other relationships that you do? How will you know your life is a success? Okay, and then the second to last question, I would say, how do you want to be remembered? That was a powerful question for me years ago when George first asked me that. What legacy do you want to leave behind? When people ask you, my favorite example of this, and hopefully I can talk about it, no, can't, without crying, was Dave Stocco. For those of you guys who don't know him, obviously most of you have probably heard about the situation. He was one of our original agents. And even just my personal experience with him, you guys, there was one morning Ascent that he came to that I had to lead out because George and John last minute threw it on me, literally. And he just, he's sitting in the room, and I could tell something was off. Something was off, And when I asked for gratitude, he said, Lindsay, I'm just grateful that you're here holding the meeting so that we can be in the right mindset for the day. My cousin just committed suicide, and I just found out on the way here. And then I go upstairs afterwards to give him condolences and to make sure, hey, is everything okay? Can I help? Because obviously I was the only manager here that morning. And he was on the phones, you guys. On the phones, right? Making sure you're in that right mindset for the day, being who you need to be, but then also being at his funeral, watching how he's not only taken the things that we do in our daily morning meeting, but he's implemented that into his whole life. And he, his kid got up and said his affirmations at his own funeral. How cool is that? Like, it just speaks to the legacy that he left behind. I mean, here it is 2 years ago, and I'm still touched by him, right? I'm still touched that when I see that little boy show up to the gym in the mornings, I'm lucky enough to see that. But he's still doing what his dad taught him. He's there with me at 5 o'clock in the morning. What's your guys' excuse? I'm just saying. Okay? I'm trying to break my level shift there, right? No. But really, and then the last question that I want you guys to ask yourself, okay, is what will you learn in 2020? What do you want to learn? Again, set the intention. Is there something that you need to do personally for yourself? Maybe when I just proposed that your purpose wasn't outward, that it's inward, maybe that's a mission that you can set yourself on this year. I know I'm still on it. Okay? I know I'm still striving for that part. And I know it's going to be an ongoing process. But maybe there's something in 2020 that you want to focus on, that you actually want to create, that you want to learn, that you want to experience. Maybe it's just like Matt, you said, just being more present, right? Being able to not look at your phone when you're in an appointment, or not worry about that deadline that you're supposed to be meeting at 3 o'clock because it's now 2:30 and your appointment's going over, right? If we remember, everything happens for a reason. Life happens for a reason. It happens for us, not to us. Okay, I know I took way more time on that, you guys, but I think hopefully you'll take some time to evaluate this. Now that you've set the goals for 2020, now that you've actually created a business plan, let's take some time to evaluate and look back at 2019. What could you learn? What could you look forward to, right? And again, remember, not only the good things, the bad things were there to teach you too. It's all the way that you look at it. It's your perception on how you want to look at it, right? I often look at my bad things now more of a learning lesson than my good things, which sometimes then I have to focus on the little things that have been right. So just make sure that you're taking this time to really dive into this, and don't set yourself. I love the story or the example that George gave yesterday. He said this lady looked at him and she said, I've never done this in 50 years. In 50 years, I've never. He goes, well, that's not true. He's like, you've probably done this, you just don't know it at some level, or you wouldn't have the success that you do, right? But what's fun is when you actually dive into these questions for yourself. And what's fun is when you can then turn around and have other people do it and be a part of that with you. So do what Dave Stocco did. Don't just sit here and do it for yourself. Take it home. Have everybody else do it. Challenge everybody else to do it. Okay? Great time to go home and think about it over the weekend. So let's make today a great day. Close out with affirmations. Any thoughts, or everybody's kind of looking at me like they're in deep thought. Any thoughts or questions?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Everything you said is just, I think we're all in deep thought because there's a lot to think about. The inward of who we want to become, or just how we're on that path to, whether it's business, personal, or health. So I think it was just great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, let's leave the meeting. Hold your head high. I feel like the last couple times I've talked, guys, it's been like,
Woo!
yeah. let's challenge you.
Yeah.
Let's bring it in. Okay. I succeed because I acted like goals. I love it. I like talking to new people. I know who supports to me. I remember people's names. I have a daily plan and I follow it. I'm passionate about real estate. I know because this is my greatest tool. I like asking questions and listening. I enjoy reading to improve my thoughts. My thoughts and my emotions act slow.